On a warm, late spring morning, Hazel Bloom turned the sign on the front door of her flower shop to read, "Open," and breathed in the sweet scent of petals and greenery. Buttercup Bend was a quiet, picturesque town, known for its tidy main street and friendly neighbors. Tourists driving through might not even notice the place, if not for the lovingly crafted flower boxes in front of every shop window on Buttercup Lane. Hazel prided herself on contributing to the locale's charm with her own store, Bloom and Glow, which specialized in fresh-cut flowers, houseplants, and gorgeous arrangements. Despite the frequent bustle of regular customers seeking bouquets for birthdays, anniversary surprises, or just to brighten a room, the shop exuded coziness. Hazel herself was a gentle soul who had grown used to the rhythms of her small town, where nothing truly out of the ordinary happened, until one day it did. The trouble began with an unusual phone order. Typically, Hazel's ears were attuned to the preferences of her neighbors. Mrs. Appleton always desired a bouquet of pink peonies for her mother's birthday. The local high school principal, Mr. Leonard, liked daisies for teacher appreciation events. Even the mayor's office made regular calls for decorative arrangements in honor of visiting council members. This new request, however, was unlike any she'd encountered before. A voice, neither masculine nor feminine, somewhat raspy, as though deliberately disguising itself, asked for an assortment of flowers. The caller wanted an arrangement with specific blooms described with eerie precision. 9 carnations, but double-wrapped, and please insert an emerald ribbon in each. Then I'd like at least 7 white irises stuck in exactly 1 inch taller than the rest. And, to finish, 5 daisies, each carefully folded or bent over at the top. At first, Hazel assumed it was one of her more eccentric patrons, or maybe some sort of unusual request for an abstract art piece, commissioned by a local artist. But the instructions were so precise that she immediately scribbled every detail onto her notepad, for fear of forgetting even a fraction of it. "Also," the voice husked, "don't forget to tie a single pink rose at the side, facing north. Set it up to hang from a baby blue ribbon, no longer than 3 inches. Rattled, Hazel promised to get it done, took down a name, Miss Smith, and phone number, and politely hung up, telling the caller the order would be ready the next day. Yet something about the entire request left Hazel uneasy. Her grandmother, who'd been the town florist long before Hazel took over, had told her that flowers often carried symbolic weight. What if this arrangement was actually a message in code? It sounded outlandish, but the lingering sense of unease wouldn't leave her. The repeated mention of numbers 9 carnations, 7 irises, 5 daisies, a single pink rose, made her wonder if each bloom or color represented something else entirely. She replayed the conversation in her head, recalling how the caller's voice almost vibrated with tension. Why was it so crucial that each stem be placed at a specific height and angle? After hours of carefully putting the arrangement together, Hazel found herself reorganizing the flowers over and over again. She stayed past closing time, telling her part-time assistant, Violet, to head home for the evening. Then, with the store to herself, she spread the order on the main work table and peered at it like a puzzle to be solved. On a whim, she tried rearranging the stems in sequential order of their color codes. White first, then pink, then the daisy's gentle yellow. But that didn't yield any obvious pattern. She considered taking a photograph and sending it to her brother Jonah, the cryptic crossword enthusiast, but she wasn't certain it would make sense to him either. The next morning, Hazel woke with fresh determination. If she had a suspicion something was amiss, she owed it to Buttercup Bend to at least investigate. She arrived at Bloom and Glow early and decided to call the number Mr. Smith had given. Maybe she could glean more clues by feigning a need for clarification. The line led to a dead end. There was no ring, just a series of beeps and an automated voice telling her the number was not in service. She tried again, with the same result. Now, her suspicion felt almost certain. This arrangement was not a whimsical floral request, but a cryptic set of instructions for something. A few hours later, a tall man in a wide-brimmed hat came in to pick up the order. He wore sunglasses, and although the day was sunny, his attire suggested he wanted as little of himself on display as possible. He handed Hazel an envelope of cash. "Mr. Smith sends his regards," the man said. Hazel, startled, offered him a polite smile. "We hope you enjoy the arrangement." He nodded, warmth absent from his face, then swiftly headed out. Through the glass door, Hazel watched him cross the street, glance furtively around, then disappear around the corner, hugging the bouquet to his chest. As the day wore on, Hazel couldn't focus. She half expected the man or Mr. Smith to burst in waving a gun or for the phone to ring with more ominous instructions. Instead, everything stayed quiet. Too quiet. That made her worry about where those flowers were actually going. Late in the afternoon, near closing time, Deputy Caroline Porter strolled in. She was stopping by to order some forget-me-nots for her grandmother, who had just moved to an assisted living facility 2 towns over. Deputy Porter was a longtime friend of Hazel's from high school. Though they weren't extremely close, they'd grown up side by side in the small community, exchanging polite greetings every time their paths crossed. As Hazel wrapped a delicate bunch of forget-me-nots in pastel tulle, she found the courage to tell Deputy Porter exactly what had her spooked. "I know it sounds ridiculous," she admitted, "but the instructions for that bouquet seemed coded. The flowers themselves, their numbers, their hanging pink rose. It might be nothing, but something feels off." Deputy Porter's eyebrows rose. She responded thoughtfully, "You've always had a good intuition, and in these quiet towns, sometimes we dismiss our gut feelings, but it might mean something. Are you sure about the details? Maybe you should jot it down and let me take a look." Quiet relief washed over Hazel. At least she wasn't being laughed at. She retrieved her notepad and showed the carefully written instructions. Deputy Porter scanned the page. "Plain red carnations, double wrapped. Emerald ribbons, yes, that is all oddly specific. If it's some kind of code, I wonder if it's referencing times, dates, or even directions." She pointed to the mention of facing north for the rose. "Look, north could be an actual direction, or it could be symbolic, like a plan to do something in that part of town. And the repeated mention of centimeters or inches might be referencing coordinates or exact time." Though neither of them had an answer just yet, Deputy Porter promised to do some digging and let Hazel know if anything suspicious arose. Feeling a bit lighter, Hazel closed up shop that evening and tried to return to her normal life. But she was plagued by nightmares of masked figures chasing after her with giant flowers turned into lethal weapons. By morning, her conviction was stronger than ever. She had to solve this puzzle before something terrible happened in Buttercup Bend. While waiting for the first customers of the day, Hazel set to analyzing the original instructions more carefully. She wrote the numbers out, 9751. Next to them, she jotted down the flower type: carnations, irises, daisies, rose. Then she tried to see if the number of letters in each flower's name linked to anything. Carnations had 9 letters, ironically matching the exact number of carnations requested. Except the arrangement asked for only 9. She then realized something else. Daisies had 6 letters, but the arrangement had asked for 5 daisies. That didn't quite match. She tried cross-referencing the letters with the instruction to place the pink rose facing north on a baby blue ribbon. Her mind spun with possibilities. She even rummaged through a few of her old puzzle books, searching for ciphers, but each attempt came to a dead end. Later that day, Deputy Porter popped back into Bloom and Glow, her expression serious. Hazel's heart did a small flip in her chest. "Can we talk in your back room?" the deputy asked. Once they were out of earshot of any shoppers, the deputy told Hazel she had reason to suspect a crime could occur soon in Buttercup Bend. A source in a neighboring county had mentioned a string of small-town bank robberies, each carried out with orchestrated precision. The thieves always struck local banks that had minimal security and a single guard on duty, typically around times when large deposits came in from local businesses. More suspiciously, Someone had even asked about the layout of Buttercup Bend's small bank a few weeks ago. Apparently a stranger had come to the bank under the pretext of wanting to open an account. Nothing conclusive, but it added to the uneasy puzzle. Yes, we do. And so far, we don't have any direct link to your flower code, but the timing is too coincidental. I think it's best we keep an eye on things, and you keep an ear out for any more strange requests. Hazel abruptly realized she was gripping the notepad so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She set it down and nodded. Over the next several days, Hazel found herself engaging in a covert investigation. She started by chatting discreetly with folks who wandered into the shop. She'd make small talk about the bank, see if they mentioned noticing out-of-town visitors. If a tourist or temporary worker came in, she'd watch them carefully. She felt slightly guilty about being suspicious of strangers, but she reminded herself it was for the town's safety. Plenty of new faces passed through, but no one left with a bouquet that matched the peculiar instructions Mr. Smith had given. One afternoon, Hazel caught sight of a black van parked just across from the bank. Through the window of Bloom and Glow, she noticed two figures in the driver and passenger seats. They didn't get out or appear to have any business in the bank, though they occasionally jotted down notes. Could they be casing the place? When Hazel picked up her phone to inform Deputy Porter, the van sped away. Hazel memorized part of the license plate, but by the time she managed to dial, the vehicle had vanished. Deputy Porter promised to keep an eye out for it, but the owners remained unidentified. That evening, Hazel once again found herself reconstructing the unusual bouquet on her work table. Referencing her notes, she laid out exactly 9 red carnations, wrapping them with 2 layers of forest green cellophane, then tying them with an emerald ribbon. Next, she positioned 7 white irises, each perched an inch above the carnations. Then she took 5 daisies and tried to fold each over at the top. The final touch was a pink rose on a baby blue ribbon, precisely 3 inches long, facing north. She arranged them carefully like puzzle pieces, hoping for an epiphany. Then, late at night, it struck her. If she looked at the arrangement from above, the layout of the stems almost resembled the shape of the bank's floor plan. It wasn't a perfect match, but the daisies were placed roughly where the bank's telestation sat, and the single pink rose could have correlated to the manager's office. If that was the front, facing north, it aligned with the bank's main entrance on the north side. That might mean the thieves planned on entering and heading directly to the manager's office or vault. The green ribbons around the carnations might symbolize the money they intended to steal. Indeed, it was possible the instructions had been a coded floor plan for a heist, one that, if timed correctly, could catch everyone off guard. Shaken by the realization, Hazel took pictures of her reconstruction and texted them to Deputy Porter. She explained her theory in a series of hurried lines. Each type of flower corresponds to an area of the bank. The daisies might be the front-line staff. The pink rose is the manager's office. The carnations, wrapped in green, presumably indicate the vault or money. The repeated references to 9751 could be times or sequences, possibly 9:15 or 7:51, not sure which. The deputy wrote back almost immediately. "This is very concerning. I'll notify the chief. We'll station plainclothes officers near the bank tomorrow and keep watch." The next day, Hazel tried to go about her business as usual, while also being on high alert. She busied herself with daily tasks, watering the hanging plants by the shop's door, tidying up the cooler that kept her roses fresh, and refreshing the window display. Her assistant Violet noticed she seemed on edge. Hazel couldn't reveal too many details, but she hinted at having concerns about suspicious behavior in town, urging Violet to remain vigilant. The day wore on without incident, until, mid-afternoon, she spotted the same tall man in a wide-brim hat who'd picked up the bizarre bouquet. This time he was without the sunglasses, but seemed equally cautious. He stopped directly in front of Bloom and Glow, looked back and forth along the street, then slipped inside. Hazel's stomach lurched. He gave her a nod, his face devoid of warmth, and gave no hint of the reasons for his visit. "Good afternoon," she managed. "How can I help you today?" He hesitated. "I need another arrangement." "A bit different from last time?" Hazel kept her composure, feigning polite curiosity as her heart hammered in her chest. If he was about to give her more cryptic instructions, she'd have direct evidence of a real plan. The man leaned over the counter and lowered his voice. "I need one orchid white, if you have it. Place it 1 inch to the left of a single lily, also white. Put 6 orange tulips around them. Let's say you bundle them with exactly 4 loops of gold ribbon." He reached into his pocket for cash. "This time, I'll wait here while you do it." Hazel managed a shaky nod, stepping away to gather the supplies. White orchid, white lily, 6 orange tulips around them, gold ribbon looped 4 times. As she measured the final loop, she realized the pattern might correspond with an equipment shift or a second phase of the robbery plan. Perhaps the orchid was the getaway, the lily was the security guard, and the 6 tulips might correspond to some new vantage or infiltration point. She worked slowly, stalling so her assistant in the storeroom might get hold of Deputy Porter. She hoped Violet understood the gravity of the situation. When Hazel presented the finished arrangement, the tall man inspected it with an intensity that made her shiver. "Perfect," he muttered. He leaned in closer. "No mistakes this time," he said ominously. "Your instructions were followed exactly last time, right?" Hazel swallowed hard. "Yes, sir, exactly as requested." He shoved a wad of cash into her hand, then carried the bouquet out the door, scanning the street as he left. Seconds later, Violet burst out from the back room. "I called Deputy Porter. She's on her way," she whispered, her cheeks flushed with worry. Hazel heaved a deep sigh, relief mixing with dread. The man was gone, and so was his strangely orchestrated arrangement. Within minutes, however, Deputy Porter arrived, accompanied by 2 fellow officers. They examined the instructions Hazel had scribbled as she worked, then promptly stepped outside to coordinate with the other local authorities. Silent tension thickened the air. That evening, well after Buttercup Bend's shops had closed, Hazel waited anxiously in her darkened store. Deputy Porter had asked if Hazel would mind staying in case more instructions came through, or if she noticed the black van again. Meanwhile, the police staked out the bank, hidden in unmarked cars and patrolling the neighboring streets. Midnight came and went with no sign of suspicious activity. At around 4 in the morning, just as a grey light touched the horizon, Hazel received a text from Deputy Porter. "They're here. We see at least 3 individuals approaching the bank's back entrance." Hazel's pulse raced as she typed back a hurried message. "Please be careful." After an agonizing half-hour of silence, the deputy called her. "We managed to surprise them. They had tools to break into the vault. Looks like they planned to cut the alarm, move quickly, and get away with a hefty haul. We apprehended them without a firefight. One suspect tried to escape in a black van parked nearby, but we caught them." "Thank you, Hazel." Her instincts had not been unfounded, and the symbolic arrangement she'd created had indeed been the criminal's blueprint. The men arrested matched the tall man's description, as well as the one who had first called with the code. The second arrangement, the orchid, lily, and tulips, almost certainly signified some final piece of the robbery strategy, perhaps the approach or escape route for a subsequent attempt if the first plan failed. The next day, Buttercup Bend was abuzz with the news of the thwarted bank heist. Typically, sensational crime was something small towns only read about in big city newspapers. But now, everyone was eager for details. Gossip swirling in front of the grocery store, on the library steps, and at the diners' booths. People lauded Hazel's quick thinking and the police department's swift action. The local newspaper, the Buttercup Gazette, ran an article that praised the florist's role in rooting out crime in the quiet heart of Buttercup Bend. Though Hazel wished they had chosen different wording, she found the pun a bit cloying. By the following week, life in Buttercup Bend had returned to its usual pleasant hum. Hazel noticed a slight uptick of customers dropping by to say hello and thank you. The bank manager even visited, with a large order for bright bouquets to decorate the restored lobby after the near break-in. "We're so grateful you spoke up," he told Hazel warmly. Yet Hazel also felt a subtle undercurrent. Some people would come in, ask about the drama, and leave disappointed that it wasn't a glamorized Hollywood tale. In truth, the story was a testament to small-town vigilance, how paying attention to the slightest oddities could help protect a tight-knit community. Not a single shot had been fired, and no one was hurt. The thieves were behind bars. Hazel's job was to keep arranging flowers and brightening people's days. Yet now, with a new perspective, she realized that her skill and intuition could be more valuable than she'd ever anticipated. As the weeks passed, Deputy Porter stopped by more frequently, this time for friendly visits. She admitted that without Hazel's suspicion, the individuals behind the heist might have escaped with a fortune, or worse, harmed someone in the process. "Sometimes," the deputy said over a cup of tea in the back room, "the most unassuming places hide the biggest clues." Hazel nodded, grateful that the town had remained safe. From then on, she continued to arrange bouquets for birthdays, anniversaries, and simpler joys. Yet, whenever an unusual request came in, whether for a flamboyant tropical arrangement or a subdued funeral wreath, she would listen carefully, pen at the ready, her senses sharpened. Because, tucked away behind the small-town charm of Buttercup Bend, dark intentions could indeed bloom if no one was watching, and she intended to be vigilant, armed with flowers and intuition, protecting her beloved community, one petal at a time.